This is Jeff Weiss with Lesson 9 on the um, nursery production, another business model for producing horticultural plants. Last week we talked about greenhouse production, and it's frequently the case that nursery owners um, use a combination of field growing plus greenhouse or other structures in their business, and we'll talk about that tonight. So point is there's not always a clear distinction between the greenhouse and nursery industries, and the nursery industry does take advantage of the technology and a lot of the ideas that we talked about last week. So your learning objectives are to be able to distinguish between the two methods of production and the appropriate uses of each. Again, recognizing that the distinction in the nursery industry is not all that clear. And you should be able to identify the major cost drivers and business issues for nursery production. Your assignment 8-9, going out in the field and interviewing and looking at one of these businesses, will help you bring this into focus. And then specific nursery production techniques include container production, bare root, and B&B, balled and burlapped methods, and we'll talk about those. So key terms and concepts include the conditions that favor or challenge proper growth and production of valuable horticulture plants. Those include soil, climate, and then methods of creating conditions favorable to plant growth and production, structures, containers, media, and then a range of ideas about protecting plants to keep them in good condition for eventual sale. So I wanted to start this with some ABCs of the nursery industry, and the goal here, or the multiple goals, are to provide the correct plants. And this is maybe the hardest thing, is to take advantage of the local conditions, the expertise of the owners and employees of the nursery, and to have a knowledge of market conditions and trends and fads to grow and supply the correct plants that are going to be marketable and in demand. And then once the correct plants have been identified, then they have to be healthy, free from diseases and pests, delivered in good condition at the right time and place, and for the consumer market with some instructions for care and maintenance of the plants. So the major production methods are in the next couple of slides. First is bare root, and that's where the material, and this is generally woody plants. The material is harvested and removed completely from the soil for shipping. So in other words, no soil, just the plant stems and root systems, usually bundled up, often with some kind of protection to keep the roots from completely drying out. And then they're shipped in bundles. And a photo of bundles of bare root materials is in the upper part of the slide. Next method, and you've all seen this, is balled and burlapped, B&B for short in the trade, where the material is dug out in the field, usually with a tree spade, and soil is wrapped around the root mass and then wrapped up in burlap for transport and eventual installation. Now, you gotta remove the rope and the burlap when you plant the tree, but I've seen instances in some of our forest preserves where the B&B plants were just dropped into the ground, the ropes and the burlap left in place, and those plantings are destined to die. However, there's also an illustration of this production method, and frequently plastic or other materials used to provide a weed barrier around the plants grown in the soil in order to protect them and to make it easier to dig them up when the time comes. The other method is growing plants in the nursery in containers, and as opposed to field grown or in-ground, there's a number of advantages and disadvantages to container growing methods. And the advantages are that the plants are easy to take to market because they're already packaged in their containers. This is a good option for extending a growing season, putting the containers under structures, and we'll talk about various types of nursery structures in a few slides. Easy to transport and also easy to transplant, since the roots are confined and already established in the container. Usually there's minimal shock from transplant when the containerized plant is put into the ground. However, containers do require more intensive management than field-grown or in-ground plants, and that's because the roots are more exposed to temperature changes and drying, which can stress or even kill the plants. So it just takes more work to maintain the conditions inside the container favorable to plant production. And then the media that the plants are grown in, whether in the ground or in containers, matters. And ideally there should be a good balance between the drainage and the moisture retention. So the lighter the soil, the more likely it is to provide good drainage. However, heavier soils retain more moisture and do not drain as quickly. And also heavier soils tend to hold nutrient content, and so a function of nutrient content is how long the crop will remain in the container, and how often and how much you're willing to fertilize while the plants are being prepared for sale. So where do you locate your nursery? Well, climate's a consideration. Temperature, rainfall, windiness, the exposure to sunlight, and air pollution can all be factors to consider in where to locate the nursery. And then the soil, as mentioned just a moment ago, the drainage is critical for in-field production, and also well-drained soils make for better conditions for the soil warming in spring, so that the growing season can get underway. The topography, the slope, and the aspect, the way the slope is facing, also have implications for drainage, erosion, ease of soil preparation, and the amount of sunlight received. The soil texture and structure. If you are using B&B, then you need enough clay to hold the root ball together. A B&B that falls apart is not going to succeed. But if, on the other hand, you're doing bare root production, then a loose or even a sandy soil is better, because it will fall away or wash away quickly when you're trying to prepare your bare root for harvest and distribution. And then finally, soil fertility. Ideally, you'd want some native fertility in the soil and the ability to hold fertilizer, whether that fertilizer be organic or synthetic. So with this idea of using structures on nurseries, there's a variety of different options here. And what kind of structures you want to have to protect your plants and extend the growing season depends on the location of your nursery and the crops you're trying to produce. And then another consideration for the location of your nursery is the economics. Where are you in relation to your market for sales? Is the land affordable? And is there a local availability of affordable and skilled labor? So with respect to nursery structures, there are several varieties. Hoop houses or high tunnels are frequently used for both extending the growing season, or if they're heated, they can provide a year-round growing environment. Row covers are the same idea as hoop houses, but are much smaller, or even minimal structures. They're simply metal frames that hold either plastic or fabric covering to provide temporary protection from cold temperatures, or they can also provide shade to plants that are not tolerant of full sunlight. Other issues for your nursery include providing protection from wind and cold, and windrows are wind breaks are methods of protecting plants from heavy winds or even from snow drifts, which can cause damage to the branches of plants. Other methods can be used to protect pots from extreme temperature changes, including mulch or growing the plants in plowed rows within the field. And then something that's less common but still can be catastrophic to nursery plants are winter splitting and sun scald. Winter splitting occurs when on nice, warm, beautiful winter days where the temperature and the sunlight heats up the plant's stems or trunks, and then a sudden cold snap can come in and freeze the sap that started to move around the plant and just split the plant wide open or even break it off. And so protection for those conditions is something that is required, particularly in the upper Midwest where we're located. Irrigation in keeping plants going during periods of drought is important, and most nurseries take advantage of drip irrigation. So a drip irrigation system just provides enough water to the root zone around a nursery plant to keep it alive. It's very cost effective and does not waste water, applies the water only where it's needed. And here's an illustration of a drip system in a vineyard, and a close-up of a drip irrigation fixture. Now, these systems can be laid on the ground and connected via hoses, or they can be off the ground as illustrated here. I would say hose lines, drip lines that run along the ground are probably much more common than the system illustrated. Other maintenance and protection issues include pests, and you need to be in constant monitoring mode and watching out for various types of herbivores and infestations of insects and outbreaks of diseases. Any one of these can wipe out your entire production. And it's just a sad fact that when we raise plants under favorable conditions, and the more of the same variety that we have, the more the plants are exposed to and vulnerable to rapid spread of these harmful organisms. So want to talk for just a minute about some of the business issues about the nursery business. Already mentioned some of them, but on this slide there are some short lists of industry issues and opportunities. So similar to the greenhouse industry, there are direct, indirect, and overhead costs. The direct costs, of course, include land and labor. The indirect costs include overhead and include costs of equipment, water, fertilizer, etc. And then overhead includes the marketing and distribution costs to sell and deliver the product. There's a lot of competition for sales of plants. Local businesses include garden centers and other local nurseries, and the competition is nationwide. Big box stores such as Home Depot bring in huge truckloads of nursery plants from large providers throughout the country, and it provides tough price competition for local nursery businesses. Marketing issues include changing consumer tastes and the cost and the differentiation through advertising and promotion. And labor, unless the nurseryman wants to do all the work him or herself, include hiring and maintaining skilled, affordable labor, and it, again, usually requires seasonal labor, so it's difficult to provide full-time, year-round labor to a workforce in this industry. And then there's always the issue that we've talked about over the past few slides of producing great plants. And hopefully through your visit with the greenhouse or nursery, you'll get an understanding of how some local businesses thrive and grow in this challenging industry and in this very competitive environment. That wraps up my comments about the nursery industry. Hope you are learning and enjoying this material, and I'll look forward to talking to you again next week.